My name is Amelia. I am 24 years old, and I live with my mother and sister in the suburbs. I walked up the driveway with nothing but my small purse and a very tired smile. I could feel the gravel crunching under my shoes. It was a Sunday family dinner, the kind I usually dreaded. Grandpa was already standing on the porch. He didn't say hello. He was looking past me, watching the Uber driver pull away from the curb. He looked confused. "Amelia," he asked loudly, "why are you arriving in an Uber? What happened to the SUV we bought you for your birthday?" My stomach tightened. I opened my mouth to answer, but I was cut off. "Her sister needed it more," my mother said. She walked out of the house, wiping her hands on a towel. She didn't even look at me. She spoke as if it was the most normal thing in the world. "Aya has a lot of errands to run, Dad. Amelia understands." The silence that followed was heavy. I didn't nod. I didn't agree. I just stood there. Grandpa's eyes narrowed as he looked at my mother, then back at me. For the first time in my life, I didn't cover for them. That was the moment I knew everything was about to change. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Amelia. I am 24 years old. I need to explain how we got here. It didn't start with the SUV. It didn't start with the Uber ride. It started years ago, in small moments that seemed harmless at the time. Aya is 2 years younger than me. When we were little, she used to walk a step behind me. Literally, if we walked to the park, she would hold the back of my shirt. If we went into a store, she would hide behind my leg when the cashier spoke to us. She was shy. She was the baby. I loved her. I loved being the big sister. I thought it was my job to protect her, to speak for her, and to give her what she wanted so she wouldn't cry. My mother encouraged this. "Amelia, let her have the doll," she would say. "You are older. You understand better." So I gave her the doll. Later, I gave her the front seat in the car. Then, I gave her the last slice of cake. I thought I was being good. I thought I was being a responsible sister. I didn't realize I was training her. I was teaching her that my needs were optional and hers were mandatory. The shift happened when we were teenagers. Aya stopped walking behind me. She started walking over me. I remember clearly the first time I felt the sting of it. I was 16. I had saved money from babysitting for 3 months to buy a specific pair of boots. They were expensive leather boots, the kind that lasted forever. I kept the money in a jar in my sock drawer. One Friday, I came home from school ready to go to the mall and buy them. The jar was empty. My heart dropped. I thought we had been robbed. I ran downstairs, panic in my chest. "Mom, my money is gone." My mother was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables. She didn't look up. "Aya borrowed it," she said. I froze. "What? That was $300. "She had a date," Mom said calmly. "She needed a new outfit. She wanted to look nice. She'll pay you back." I waited for Aya to come home. When she did, she was wearing a new dress and carrying shopping bags. She looked happy. She looked beautiful. "You took my money," I said. My voice was shaking. Aya rolled her eyes. She didn't look sorry. She looked annoyed that I was bringing it up. "Relax, Amelia. Mom said it was okay. I'll pay you back when I get my allowance." She never paid me back, not a cent. And when I asked Mom about it a week later, Mom sighed. "Amelia, stop being so petty. It's family money. We help each other." That was the pattern. If I complained, I was petty. If I got angry, I was jealous. If I cried, I was dramatic. So I stopped complaining. By the time we were in our 20s, it was worse. It wasn't just money anymore. It was my identity. I worked hard in college. I studied business. I got good grades. Aya partied. She barely scraped by. But when we went to family gatherings, Aya told the stories. She would take things I had done and twist them. "I had such a hard time with that economics final," she told our Aunt Sarah one Thanksgiving. She described the exact problem I had studied for all week. She described the professor I had. She hadn't even taken that class. I sat there, eating my mashed potatoes, listening to her steal my struggle. I looked at my mother. Mom knew Aya was lying, but Mom just smiled and nodded. "Yes, Aya worked so hard," Mom said. I put my fork down. "Aya," I said quietly, "you didn't take economics 201. The table went quiet. Aya laughed, a bright, fake sound. "Oh my God, Amelia, you always have to fact-check everything. You know what I meant. I meant we're stressed about school." Then she looked at the rest of the family. "Amelia is so serious all the time. She doesn't know how to tell a story." Everyone laughed. They laughed with her. They thought she was charming. They thought I was the boring, uptight sister. I loved her too much to see what she was doing, or maybe I was just too scared to admit it. I didn't want to lose my sister. I didn't want to be the bad guy. But Aya loved the fact that I didn't see it. She relied on my silence. My silence was the foundation of her personality. She stood tall because she was standing on my back. She borrowed clothes and returned them stained, or never returned them at all. I would find my favorite sweater balled up in the back of her car, smelling like smoke. "Oh, that old thing," she would say. "I was doing you a favor taking it. It's out of style anyway." She gaslit me constantly. She made me feel like my possessions were burdening her. But the worst part wasn't the clothes or the money. It was the emotional theft. When I went through a bad breakup, I cried in my room for 2 days. Mom told me to pull it together because we had guests coming. 2 months later, Aya had a fling with a guy for 2 weeks. When they ended it, she wailed in the living room for hours. Mom sat with her, stroking her hair, bringing her tea. "Poor baby," Mom cooed. "He didn't deserve you." I watched from the doorway. I felt a cold lump in my throat. "Mom," I said, "when Dave and I broke up after 2 years, you told me to be quiet." Mom looked up, irritated. "This is different, Amelia. Aya feels things more deeply than you do. You are strong. You can handle it. Aya is sensitive." That was the label they gave me. Strong. It wasn't a compliment. It was an excuse. Because I was strong, I didn't need comfort. Because I was strong, I didn't need new things. Because I was strong, I could handle the injustice. Because Aya was sensitive, she needed everything. She needed the attention, the money, the new clothes, the comfort. My strength became my punishment. Her weakness became her currency. I accepted this role for years. I thought if I just worked harder, if I was just nicer, eventually they would see me. Eventually they would say, "Thank you, Amelia, you are good." I was wrong. They didn't want me to be good. They wanted me to be useful. And nothing proved that more than the day I got the SUV was supposed to be mine. It was a clear, direct gift. There was no ambiguity. It was my 26th birthday. Grandpa had called me a week before. "Amelia," he said in his gruff voice, "I'm proud of you. You finished your certification. You've been driving that old sedan since high school. It's time for an upgrade." Grandpa was the only one who seemed to see me. He didn't live with us. He lived in a large house about 30 minutes away. He was old school. He believed in hard work and rewards. He didn't like handouts. He bought a brand new white SUV. It had leather seats. It had a sunroof. It was beautiful. He gave me the keys at a small lunch he hosted. "This is for you," he said. "You earned it. Drive it safely." I remember holding the keys. They felt heavy and cool in my hand. I felt a surge of pride. For the first time in a long time, I had something of value that was just mine. I drove it home that afternoon. The smell of new leather filled the car. I felt like an adult. I felt respected. When I pulled into the driveway of our family home, where I was still living to save money for a down payment on a house, Mom and Aya came out. Aya's eyes went wide. She walked around the car, running her hand along the white paint. "Wow," she said, "this is nice." "Grandpa bought it for me," I said, unable to hide my smile. Mom looked at the car, then at me. She didn't say congratulations. She said, "It's very big. Are you sure you can handle a car this size, Amelia?" "Yes, Mom, I can handle it." "Well," Mom said, "don't scratch it." I parked it in the garage. I locked it. I went inside and put the keys in my room. The next morning, I woke up early to go to work. I showered, got dressed, and went to grab my keys from the hook by the door where we kept all the car keys. My keys weren't there. I frowned. I checked my purse. I checked my room. Nothing. I went into the kitchen. Mom was drinking coffee. "Mom, have you seen my keys, the keys to the new SUV?" Mom didn't look up from her phone. "Aya took it." I stopped. My brain couldn't process the sentence. "What?" "Aya took the car," Mom repeated casually. "She had a job interview downtown. Her car has been making that funny noise, remember? She couldn't risk breaking down. She needed to make a good impression." "But, it's my car," I said. "It's brand new. Grandpa gave it to me yesterday." "Amelia, don't be selfish," Mom snapped. She finally looked at me. "Your sister is trying to get a job. This is important for her future. You can take the bus or call a cab. You have a steady job, you're fine." "She didn't even ask me," I said. I felt the heat rising in my face. "I gave her permission," Mom said. "I am your mother." I decided it was best. I had to take an Uber to work that day. I was late. When I came home, the SUV was in the driveway. It was parked crooked. There was a fast food wrapper on the passenger seat. The gas tank, which Grandpa had filled, was half empty. Aya was on the couch watching TV. "You took my car," I said. Yeah, she said, eyes on the screen. It drives really smooth. But the Bluetooth is tricky to connect. Don't take it again, I said. She laughed. Chill out, it's just a car. 2 days later, it happened again. This time, she needed it because she was going to meet friends and wanted to look successful. She's networking, Mom said. It's important for her image. By the second week, I didn't even see the keys anymore. Mom kept them. It makes more sense for Aya to drive it, Mom told me one evening while cooking dinner. She drives further distances than you. You work 10 minutes away. It's a waste of a big car for a 10-minute commute. Aya needs the safety of a larger vehicle on the highway. It's my car, I whispered. Grandpa bought it for me. He bought it for the family, Mom corrected me. He put it in your name because you're the oldest, but he meant it for the family. Don't be greedy. I knew that was a lie. I knew Grandpa put it in my name because he wanted me to have it. But I couldn't call Grandpa and tell him. Why? Because I was ashamed. I was ashamed that I couldn't stand up to my mother. I was ashamed that I was 26 years old and letting them walk all over me. If I told Grandpa, he would be angry and he would yell at Mom. Then Mom would blame me. She would say I was causing trouble. She would say I was trying to turn the family against her. The house would become a war zone and I would be the enemy. So I did what I always did. I shut down. I stopped asking for the keys. I started taking Ubers every day. I paid for them out of my savings. I watched Aya drive away in my car every morning. She posted pictures of it on Instagram, captions like, "New whip, hard work pays off." She was stealing credit for my gift. She was stealing the physical object, and she was stealing the pride that came with it. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't scream. I just went silent. My mother took this silence as agreement. She thought she had won. She thought, see, Amelia is fine with it, she understands. My silence looked like weakness to them. They thought I was broken. They thought I was just a doormat who had finally accepted her place in the dirt. But that was their first mistake. I wasn't broken. I was waking up. For the first time, I wasn't looking at them with love. I wasn't looking at Aya as my baby sister who needed protection. I wasn't looking at Mom as the authority figure who knew best. I was looking at them as thieves. I realized they didn't care about my feelings. They didn't care about justice. They only cared about what they could take. And because I was silent, I was able to see things I had missed before. When you stop fighting, you have more time to watch. I watched Aya leave the house. I watched how she treated the car. I watched how she treated Mom. I realized something terrifying. Aya didn't respect Mom either. She used Mom just like she used me. And Mom let her, because Mom lived vicariously through Aya's fake glamorous life. I was the only one in the house living in reality. And reality is a very powerful weapon if you know how to use it. So the Sunday dinner at Grandpa's house approached. Mom told me, "We'll take the SUV, you can ride in the back." "No," I said. It was the first time I had said no in weeks. Mom paused. "What do you mean no?" "I have some things to do," I lied. "I'll meet you there." "Fine," Mom said, annoyed. "Don't be late and don't make a scene." She and Aya left in my SUV. Aya was driving. Mom was in the passenger seat, my seat. I waited 10 minutes. Then I called an Uber. I didn't bring a gift. I didn't bring a dish to pass. I didn't bring anything to hide behind. I was going to Grandpa's house empty-handed. I was going to walk in there, and for the first time, I wasn't going to cover for them. I wasn't going to explain where the car was. I wasn't going to make up a lie about how Aya drives better than me. I was going to let the truth sit in the room. I knew Grandpa. I knew he paid attention to details. I knew he would ask. And when he asked, I would be ready. We went inside for dinner. The air in the house was stiff. Grandpa walked ahead, his cane tapping rhythmically on the hardwood floor. He didn't say anything else about the Uber, but I saw the way his jaw was set. He was thinking. My mother and Aya were nervous. They exchanged quick, frantic glances. They were used to me smoothing things over. Usually, if Grandpa sensed tension, I would make a joke or change the subject. I would be the peacekeeper. Tonight, I said nothing. I walked to the dining room and took my seat at the far end of the table. Dinner at Grandpa's was always a production. Roast beef, potatoes, green beans, and thick gravy. It was the kind of meal that was supposed to make you feel safe and full. Tonight, it felt like a courtroom. I watched Aya. This is what I meant about clarity. When you stop being angry, you start seeing the mechanics of how people work. For years, I had reacted to Aya with hurt. I would cry, "Why are you doing this?" I would scream, "That's not fair." My emotions made me look unstable. They made me look like the problem. So tonight, I turned off the emotion. I treated the dinner like a movie I was watching. I watched Aya pour wine for everyone. She was performing. She laughed too loud at Grandpa's small comments. She complimented Aunt Sarah's dress 3 times. She was desperate to fill the silence. She started talking about her busy week. "Oh, it's been crazy," Aya said, spooning potatoes onto her plate. "I've been running all over town. Networking events, meeting with potential clients. It's exhausting being so driven." She didn't have any clients. She didn't have a job. She was trying to become an influencer and mostly spent her days taking photos in coffee shops. Mom nodded enthusiastically. "She works so hard, Dad. You should see her. She's up at dawn." That was a lie. Aya slept until noon. I was the one up at dawn making coffee before my commute. In the past, I would have snapped. I would have said, "She's lying, she sleeps all day." And Mom would have said, "Amelia, stop being jealous." So instead, I took a sip of water. I looked at Aya. I let the lie hang in the air. I observed how she did it. She used vague words. Clients, meetings, projects. She never gave details. Details are where lies fall apart. She kept it blurry so no one could catch her. She was building a fake image of herself. She wanted Grandpa to see her as the responsible, successful granddaughter. She wanted to be the one he was proud of. She stole credit too. "This gravy is delicious," Grandpa said. "Thanks," Aya chirped. "I told Mom to add a little extra time. I knew you'd like it." I had made the gravy base the night before at our house. Mom had brought it over in a container. Aya hadn't even been in the kitchen. I felt a flash of heat in my chest, but I pushed it down. Let her have the gravy, I thought. Small victories for small people. I was playing a longer game. I realized that revenge isn't about screaming. It isn't about flipping the table. Revenge is patience. It is waiting for the other person to make a mistake. And Aya made mistakes constantly. She was sloppy. She was arrogant. She thought she was smarter than everyone else in the room. That was her blind spot. She thought I was silent because I was defeated. She didn't know I was taking notes. I noted how she avoided eye contact when Grandpa asked about specific dates. I noted how she checked her phone under the table. I noted how she kicked Mom's foot when the conversation got too close to the truth. Every lie was a brick she was stacking on a wall that was already leaning. All I had to do was wait for gravity to do its job. I looked at Grandpa. He wasn't eating much. He was watching Aya too. He was nodding, but his eyes were sharp. He was a businessman. He had built his wealth by reading people. For years, Mom had shielded Aya from his scrutiny. But tonight, the shield was gone because I wasn't holding it up. The silence I offered was dangerous. It forced Aya to talk more. And the more she talked, the more she trapped herself. Aya's biggest weakness wasn't her laziness or her greed. It was her desperate need for Grandpa's approval. She didn't care what I thought. She didn't really care what Mom thought because she could manipulate Mom easily. But Grandpa was different. Grandpa held the power. He held the money. And deep down, Aya knew he was the only one she couldn't fully fool. That made her try harder. It made her reckless. Midway through dinner, the conversation turned to the farmhouse. Grandpa owned an old farmhouse about 2 hours north. It had been in the family for generations. It was valuable land, but more than that, it was a symbol. Grandpa always said he would leave it to the grandchild who showed the most grit. Aya wanted that farmhouse. She talked about it constantly. She had fantasies of turning it into a wedding venue or a retreat center, someplace where she could be the boss and look important. "I was thinking about the farmhouse the other day," Aya said, leaning forward. "The roof probably needs checking before winter. I was thinking I could drive up there next weekend and take a look at it. Manage the contractors. You know, take that burden off your shoulders, Grandpa." Grandpa looked at her over his glasses. "You know about roofing, Aya." "Well, I know how to manage people," she said quickly. "And I have the SUV now, so the drive is easy. It handles those country roads so well. Much better than Amelia's old sedan." She brought up the car. She couldn't help herself. She wanted to remind him that she was the one using his gift. She wanted to validate her theft. "Is that so?" Grandpa asked. His voice was very quiet. "The SUV handles the roads well." "Oh, yes," Aya said, gaining confidence. "It's a beast. I took it out to the edge of town yesterday just to test the handling. It's perfect for the work I'm doing." I froze. I knew for a fact she hadn't left the city limits yesterday. She had been at the mall. I saw the shopping bags. She was lying to Grandpa to prove she was using the car for work. She was trying to justify why she had it. Mom jumped in. "It's really been a blessing for her, Dad. Amelia doesn't mind. Amelia prefers being a passenger, don't you, honey? Mom looked at me. Her eyes were wide, begging me to agree. Just say yes, her eyes said. Don't ruin this. I put my fork down. The clink of the metal against the china was loud. This was the moment. I didn't have to attack. I just had to step out of the way and let the illusion fall. I looked at Grandpa. I don't prefer being a passenger, I said clearly. The table went dead silent. Mom's face went pale. Aya stopped chewing. I actually really enjoyed driving the SUV, I continued, keeping my voice steady and low. The one day I got to drive it, it was a beautiful gift. Aya laughed nervously. Amelia, don't be weird, you know you hate highway driving. I drove it home from the dealership, I said. I loved it. Grandpa turned his head slowly toward me. The one day you got to drive it, he repeated. I nodded. Yes, the day you gave it to me. And you haven't driven it since? Grandpa asked. No, sir. Why? My mother interrupted. Dad, it's just logistics. We share cars. It's what families do. Aya needed it for. Grandpa held up a hand. He didn't look at Mom. He looked at me. Amelia. Why haven't you driven the car I bought for you? I took a breath. I didn't look at Aya. I didn't look at Mom. I looked right at him. Because Aya took the keys the next morning, I said. She told me she needed it more. Mom told me I was selfish if I didn't give it to her, so I've been taking Ubers to work for 2 weeks. I said it simply. No tears, no screaming, just facts. Aya's face turned red. That is such a lie, you gave it to me. You said you didn't want to scratch it. I didn't give it to you, I said calmly. You took it off the hook while I was sleeping. Mom, Aya yelled, turning to her. Tell him Amelia is lying. Mom looked panicked. She was caught in the middle. She looked at her father, who was staring at her with cold eyes. She looked at Aya, who was demanding protection. It was a misunderstanding, Mom stammered. Amelia is she's feeling sensitive today. We share the car, that's all. Grandpa didn't speak for a long time. He looked at Aya's red, angry face. He looked at Mom's sweating forehead. And he looked at me, sitting calmly with my hands in my lap. Aya had built a perfect image of a responsible, hardworking granddaughter who deserved the family inheritance. And with 3 sentences, I had cracked it wide open. I see, Grandpa said finally. He picked up his napkin and dabbed his mouth. He didn't yell, he didn't flip the table. Aya, he said softly, you said you drove it to the edge of town yesterday. Yes, Aya said, desperate to get back on track. I did, it drives great. That's interesting, Grandpa said. He stood up, because I have a tracker on that car. Aya's mouth fell open. I had the dealership install it for safety, Grandpa said, in case Amelia got stranded. I get a report on my phone of everywhere the car goes. The color drained from Aya's face so fast she looked sick. Let's go to my study, Grandpa said. We have some things to discuss. The dining room felt very small after Grandpa spoke about the tracker. The air was sucked out of the room. Aya looked like she had been slapped. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. She looked at Mom, but Mom was staring at her plate, her face pale. Mom knew. In that split second, Mom realized that all the lies she had helped Aya tell were about to collapse. Shall we? Grandpa said. He didn't wait for an answer. He turned and walked out of the dining room toward the hallway that led to his study. The sound of his cane hitting the floor, tap, 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 was the only noise in the house. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, not from fear, but from adrenaline. It was the feeling you get when a storm finally breaks after days of humidity. Aya didn't move. She sat frozen in her chair. Mom, Aya whispered. Her voice was a hiss. Mom, do something. Mom looked up. Her eyes were darting around the room as if looking for an exit. Aya, I told you to be careful, Mom hissed back. I told you not to lie about where you were going. You told me it was fine, Aya snapped. You said he would never know. Quiet, Mom said, grabbing Aya's wrist. He'll hear you, just, come on, we have to go in there. If we don't, it looks worse. It can't look worse, Aya said. Her voice was trembling now. The confidence was gone. The girl boss act was gone. She was just a scared child who had been caught with her hand in the jar. Fix your face, Mom said harshly. She stood up and pulled Aya up with her. Deny it. Say the tracker must be broken. Say you lent the car to a friend. Just think of something. I watched them. I stood near the doorway and just watched. It was pathetic. For years, I had thought they were a fortress. I thought they were this unbreakable team that I could never defeat. I thought they were smarter than me, stronger than me. But watching them panic in the dining room, whispering lies to each other, I realized they weren't strong. They were just loud. And now that they had to be quiet, they were crumbling. I turned and walked into the hallway. The hallway in Grandpa's house was lined with family photos. I walked past them slowly. I usually hated this hallway because it was a timeline of my erasure. There was a photo of us at Disney World when we were kids. Aya was in the front, wearing Mickey ears, smiling huge at the camera. I was in the back, half cut out of the frame, holding Mom's bag. There was a photo of Aya's high school graduation. She was holding a bouquet of roses. I wasn't in the picture because I was the one taking it. There was a photo of a family Christmas. Aya was sitting on Grandpa's lap. Mom was leaning in. I was standing off to the side, looking awkward. For years, these photos told me that I was a side character in their story. But tonight, as I walked past them, they looked different. They didn't look like happy memories. They looked like evidence. They showed a pattern. They showed how long Aya had been the center of the universe, and how long Mom had worked to keep her there. I heard footsteps behind me. Mom and Aya were following. They were walking close together, shoulder to shoulder. A united front. I stopped at the heavy oak door of the study. It was closed. Mom came up behind me. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight. "Amelia," she whispered. Her voice was low and dangerous. "Don't you say a word in there, do you hear me? You've done enough damage tonight." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then I looked at her face. "I didn't do the damage, Mom," I said calmly. "I just turned on the lights." "You are being vindictive," Mom spat. "You are jealous of your sister, you always have been. If you ruin this for her, I will never forgive you." "Ruin what?" I asked. "Her lie, her future," Mom said. "Grandpa is old, he doesn't understand, we have to manage him. We have to keep the peace. Why can't you just go along with it? Why do you have to be so difficult?" "Difficult," I repeated. That was their favorite word for me. I was difficult when I wanted my money back. I was difficult when I wanted my clothes back. I was difficult when I wanted the car that was legally mine. To them, difficult meant having boundaries. "I'm not being difficult," I said. "I'm being honest." I pulled my arm away from her grip. It wasn't a violent motion, just a firm one. I stepped away from her. "And Mom," I added, looking her right in the eyes, "you should be worried about your own future. Not just Aya's." Mom looked shocked. I had never spoken to her like that. I had never threatened her. Aya made a noise like a whimper. "Amelia, please, I'll give you the car back. Tomorrow, I promise. Just tell him you let me borrow it." "Please," she was begging now. The arrogance was completely gone. I looked at my sister. I searched for any feeling of pity in my heart. I waited to feel bad for her. I waited for that old big sister instinct to kick in, the one that made me want to fix everything for her. I felt nothing. It was like looking at a stranger. "I can't tell him I let you borrow it," I said softly. "Why not?" Aya pleaded. "Because," I said, reaching for the doorknob. "He already knows I didn't." I turned the brass knob and pushed the door open. Grandpa's study smelled like old paper, pipe tobacco, and lemon polish. It was a masculine room, dark and serious. The walls were covered in bookshelves filled with legal books, history books, and encyclopedias. Grandpa was sitting behind his massive mahogany desk. The green banker's lamp was on, casting a pool of light on the desktop. The rest of the room was in shadow. He didn't look up when we walked in. He was looking at his phone. "Sit down," he said. There were 2 leather armchairs in front of the desk. Mom and Aya took them immediately. They sat on the edge of the seats, back straight, like students in the principal's office. I didn't sit. I stood near the door, leaning against a bookshelf. I felt safer standing. I wanted to see the whole room. "Close the door, Amelia," Grandpa said. I clicked the door shut. The sound was final. Grandpa put his phone down on the desk. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. He looked tired, not sleepy but weary. The kind of tired you get when you realize people you love are disappointing you. "I looked at the report," Grandpa said. He spoke to the air, not to anyone specific. "For the last 2 weeks. Aya shifted in her seat. The leather squeaked loudly. "Aya," Grandpa said, turning his eyes to her, "you said you were meeting clients." "Yes, Grandpa," Aya said. Her voice was weak. "I have potential investors for my brand." "Your brand," Grandpa repeated. It wasn't a question, it was a flat statement. "Yes," Aya said. "Social media is a business, Grandpa. It takes a lot of meetings." "I see," Grandpa said. He picked up a piece of paper from his desk. It was a printout. "So, on Tuesday, when you had the car from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., you were meeting investors." "Yes," Aya said. "I was at a lunch meeting." Grandpa looked at the paper. The car was parked at the Oakwood Mall for 5 hours. Specifically, near the movie theater entrance. Aya froze. "And on Thursday," Grandpa continued, running his finger down the list. You said you were driving to the edge of town to test the handling for the roof repair project. I did, Aya stammered. I might have stopped for coffee. The car was parked at a nail salon on 5th Street for 2 hours, Grandpa read. Then it went to a residential address on Maple Avenue. Who lives on Maple Avenue? Aya didn't answer. She looked down at her lap. That's where your friend Jason lives, isn't it? Grandpa asked. Aya's head snapped up. How do you know that? I know a lot of things, Grandpa said. I know you drove my gift, a gift I gave to your sister so she could get to work safely to a boy's house. He's not just a boy, Aya said defensively. He's a photographer, we were working. Aya, Mom interrupted. Stop talking. Mom leaned forward. Dad, listen, kids exaggerate. She shouldn't have lied about the locations, I agree. That was wrong. But she is young. She wanted to impress you. She borrowed the car because she looks up to you. She wanted to look successful like you. Mom was good. She was trying to spin it. She was trying to make Aya's lie into a compliment for Grandpa. She wanted to look successful, Grandpa repeated. By stealing? It wasn't stealing, Mom said, forcing a laugh. It's family property. Amelia lives in my house. We share things. It's communism in our kitchen, Dad, you know that. She was trying to make a joke. Grandpa didn't smile. Amelia, Grandpa said. Yes, Grandpa, I answered from the shadows. Did you agree to share? He asked. No, I said. Did you offer the keys? No. Did you ask for them back? Every day, I said, for the first week. Then I stopped because Mom told me I was being selfish. Grandpa looked at Mom. His eyes were cold. You told her she was selfish, Grandpa asked Mom. For wanting to drive her own car, Mom flushed red. Dad, you don't understand the dynamic. Amelia can be difficult. She holds on to things. I was just trying to teach her to be generous. Aya needed help. Amelia didn't need the car. She takes the bus usually. She's used to it. She takes the bus because she has to, Grandpa said. I bought the car so she wouldn't have to. You decided to overrule me. I didn't overrule you, Mom said, her voice rising. I am her mother. I run that house. I decide who drives what. And you decided the liar gets the prize, Grandpa said. The room went silent. That is harsh, Dad, Mom whispered. It is the truth, Grandpa said. I gave Amelia a reward for her hard work. You took it and gave it to Aya as a reward for her laziness. I am not lazy, Aya yelled. She stood up. She couldn't handle the criticism. I work hard on my image. You don't get it. You're old. You don't understand how the world works now. Appearance is everything. Amelia doesn't care how she looks. She drives an ugly car. She wears boring clothes. The SUV was wasted on her. It fits me better. She was screaming now. The mask was completely off. She was showing her true face, the entitlement, the vanity, the cruelty. It fits my brand, Aya shouted. I needed it. Amelia is a nobody. She doesn't need a luxury car to go sit in a cubicle. I felt a sting in my eyes, but I didn't look away. Let her speak, I told myself. Let him see. Grandpa sat very still. He watched Aya scream. He watched her wave her hands. He watched the ugly words pour out of her mouth. When she finally stopped, panting, the room was ringing with silence. Are you finished? Grandpa asked quietly. Aya stood there, chest heaving. She looked around, suddenly realizing what she had said. She sat back down slowly. I'm sorry, she muttered. I'm just stressed. You aren't stressed, Grandpa said. You are spoiled. He opened the top drawer of his desk. And I am responsible, Grandpa said. I let this happen. I let your mother coddle you. I let you think the world owed you something just for breathing. He pulled out a thick manila envelope. But I am fixing it tonight. Aya saw the envelope. Her eyes lit up. Even now, after everything she had just screamed, she thought she was getting something. She thought Grandpa was going to buy her off. She thought this was a check. She sat up straighter. She wiped her face. She prepared to receive her gift. It was tragic. She couldn't imagine a world where she didn't win. Grandpa placed the envelope on the desk. It was thick and heavy. Do you know what this is? He asked. Aya leaned forward. Is it for the business? She asked hopefully. Mom looked at the envelope and I saw her face change. She recognized it. She knew what was inside. She put her hand over her mouth. Oh no, Mom whispered. Dad, don't. What? Aya asked, looking at Mom. What is it? Grandpa ignored Mom. He looked at Aya. For years, Grandpa said, I have told you girls about the farmhouse. Aya nodded eagerly. Yes, the estate. You said you would leave it to one of us. I said I would leave it to the grandchild who showed integrity, Grandpa corrected. I said I would leave it to the one who could carry the family name with honor. I can do that, Aya said quickly. I have big plans for it, Grandpa. I want to renovate the barn. I want to make it a destination. It will be famous. It's a farm, Aya, Grandpa said. It's not a destination, it's dirt, it's hard work, it's history. He put his hand on the envelope. I had this drawn up 6 months ago, Grandpa said. I was waiting for the right time. I was watching you both. I wanted to see who you became as adults. I'm an adult, Aya said. No, Grandpa said. You are a child playing dress-up. He slid the envelope across the desk. But he didn't slide it toward Aya. He slid it toward the empty space where I would have been sitting if I had taken a chair. He looked at me, standing by the bookshelf. Amelia, he said. Come here. I walked forward. My heart was pounding in my throat. I stood next to the desk. Open it, Grandpa said. My hands were shaking slightly as I picked up the envelope. I undid the string clasp. I reached inside and pulled out the papers. It was a deed. A property deed, transfer of title. Grantee, Amelia Rose Miller. It was the farmhouse, the land, the barns, the acres of forest, everything. I stared at my name typed in bold black letters. It wasn't just a house, it was freedom. It was a home of my own. It was a place where I didn't have to hide my keys. It was a place where no one could walk over me. Dad, Mom screamed. You can't do that. It is done, Grandpa said. It is signed and notarized. It is hers. But that property is worth $500,000, Mom yelled. You can't just give it all to Amelia. What about Aya? What about fairness? Fairness, Grandpa asked. His voice rose for the first time. You want to talk about fairness? He pointed a shaking finger at Aya. She stole her sister's car. She lied to my face. She insulted her sister's work. She lived off your money and my generosity and gave nothing back but attitude. He turned to Mom. And you enabled it. You watched your oldest daughter, the one who works, the one who saves, the one who is honest. You watched her get robbed in her own home and you told her to be quiet. Grandpa looked at me. His eyes were soft now. Amelia has been fair, Grandpa said. She has been too fair, she has been patient, and patience deserves a reward. Aya was staring at the deed in my hands. Her face was twisting. It wasn't sadness. It was pure, unadulterated rage. You tricked me, Aya screamed at me. She jumped up and lunged toward me. You set me up, you knew, you acted all quiet so he would feel sorry for you. Grandpa slammed his hand on the desk. Bang, sit down, he roared. It was a voice I had never heard him use. It was the voice of a man who had run companies. It was terrifying. Aya fell back into her chair, sobbing. It's not fair, she wailed. She gets a car and a house, and I get nothing. I'm your granddaughter too. You get a lesson, Grandpa said. It is the most valuable thing I can give you right now. I don't want a lesson, Aya cried. I want the house, I had plans. Your plans were fantasies, Grandpa said. Amelia will take care of the land, she respects it. He looked at me. It's yours, Amelia. You can live there, you can sell it. You can burn it down. It is yours. No one can take it from you, not your mother. Not your sister. I held the papers against my chest. They felt like armor. Thank you, Grandpa, I whispered. Don't thank me yet, he said. Owning things is responsibility, something your sister never learned. Mom was crying now too. But she wasn't crying for me, she was crying for herself. She realized the balance of power had just shifted permanently. She realized she had bet on the wrong horse. Dad, please, Mom wept. Aya is fragile. This will break her. Let her break, Grandpa said ruthlessly. Maybe then she can build herself back up into something real. The scene in the study became ugly. Aya's crying turned into a tantrum. It was the kind of tantrum a toddler throws, but terrifying coming from a 24-year-old woman. She accused everyone. You always hated me, she screamed at Grandpa. You never defended me, she screamed at Mom. You stole my life, she screamed at me. She couldn't accept that her actions had consequences. In her mind, she was the victim. She was the princess who had been denied her crown. I watched her, and for the first time, I understood her completely. She was empty. She had spent her whole life filling herself up with other people's attention, other people's money, other people's praise. She had no core. Without the validation, she collapsed. Mom was trying to hug her, but Aya pushed her away. Get off me, Aya yelled. You said you would fix it. You said Grandpa would give it to me. Mom looked at Grandpa, pleading. Dad, look what you're doing. You're tearing the family apart. Grandpa stood up slowly. He walked around the desk. He stopped in front of Mom. I didn't tear it apart, Grandpa said. I just removed the rot. He looked at Mom with disappointment that seemed to age him 10 years in a moment. You failed them, he said to Mom. You failed Aya by never telling her no. And you failed Amelia by never telling her yes. Mom sobbed, burying her face in her hands. Grandpa turned to me. He put a hand on my shoulder. His hand was warm and heavy. Amelia, he said, do you have your keys? No, I said. Mom has them. Grandpa looked at Mom. Give her the keys. Mom looked up, her face streaked with mascara. She fumbled in her purse. Her hands were shaking. She pulled out the shiny key fob to the SUV. She held it out. She didn't look at me. She looked at the floor. I took the keys. Aya has your purse in the car, Mom whispered. And her jacket. She can get them, Grandpa said. Amelia is leaving. Now, Mom asked. But we came together. Amelia is leaving alone, Grandpa said. You and Aya can call an Uber, see how it feels. Aya looked up, her eyes puffy and red. You're making us take a taxi. Yes, Grandpa said. And I suggest you pay for it yourself. I looked at the deed in my hand. I looked at the keys in my other hand. Go, Grandpa said to me gently. Drive safely. Go home, pack your things. You can move into the farmhouse tonight if you want. The heat is on. There is food in the pantry. Tonight, I asked. Why wait, Grandpa said. Why stay one more night in a house where you are not respected? He was right. I looked at Aya one last time. She was curled up in the leather chair, looking small and defeated. She wasn't scary anymore. She wasn't powerful. She was just a girl who had lost her game. Goodbye, Aya, I said. She didn't answer. She just glared at me with hate, but it was a powerless hate. It couldn't touch me anymore. I looked at Mom. I'll come by tomorrow for my boxes, I said. Please don't touch them. Mom nodded weakly. She knew better than to argue now. Next time someone takes from you, Grandpa said, squeezing my shoulder, come to me first. I will, I said. The weight of 20 years lifted off my back. It wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a slow, steady release. The tension in my neck, the knot in my stomach, the constant feeling of walking on eggshells, it was all gone. I turned and walked out of the study. I walked down the hallway. The photos on the wall didn't bother me anymore. I walked past Aya's smiling face. I walked past the memories of my exclusion. They were just pictures now. They were the past. I walked out the front door into the cool night air. It was crisp. I could smell the rain coming. The white SUV was parked in the driveway. It glowed under the porch light. It was dirty. Aya hadn't washed it, but it was beautiful. I walked up to it and pressed the unlock button on the fob. The lights flashed, beep beep. It sounded like a greeting. I opened the driver's door. The interior was messy. There were empty coffee cups in the cup holder. There were lipstick stains on the napkins. The seat was pushed all the way back. I threw the trash into the bin by the garage. I adjusted the seat. I adjusted the mirrors. I made it mine again. I put the envelope with the deed on the passenger seat. I started the engine. It purred to life. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw the front door open. Mom and Aya came out. They stood on the porch watching me. They looked like ghosts. Two people who used to define my world, now just spectators. I didn't honk. I didn't wave. I didn't roll down the window to shout a final insult. I just drove. I drove down the long driveway, past the trees, and onto the main road. I didn't go back to Mom's house. I didn't want to go there yet. I turned north, toward the highway, toward the farmhouse. It was a 2-hour drive. I turned on the radio. I opened the sunroof and let the wind blow through my hair. I thought about what had happened. I thought about the look on Aya's face. I thought about the silence in the room. I felt no guilt. That was the most surprising part. I had expected to feel guilty. I had been trained to feel guilty my whole life whenever I upset them. But I felt nothing but peace. I felt clean. Justice doesn't always have to be a fight. Sometimes you don't have to throw a punch. Sometimes you just have to wait for the truth to catch up. Aya had spent her life building a glass castle. All I had to do was stop holding it up for her. I glanced at the passenger seat. The envelope was sitting there. A house, a home, my own land. I smiled. It was a real smile, not the tired one I had worn for years. The road ahead was dark, illuminated only by my headlights. But for the first time in my life, I knew exactly where I was going, and I was driving there myself. I turned up the music, pressed the gas pedal, and drove into my own life. The silence was finally mine, and it was beautiful.